I got bits at the end of 2017, but our video isn't going to start until 2020. It's been a long and painfully slow process with this horse, but entirely worth everything we've endured. Bits is an off-the-track thoroughbred, and I plan to do the thoroughbred makeover with him in 2018, but he didn't even go to his first horse show until 2021, so needless to say, the makeover did not happen for him. As you can see, Bits was a pretty tense and nervous horse a few years ago. Granted, there were some good moments, maybe good is being too generous. There were some decent moments here and there, but for the most part he was a very tense horse that wanted to evade every single one of my aids. He was overly sensitive to my leg and seat and wanted nothing more than to run through my hand. Literally, if I let go of this horse any more than I did, he would have been off to the races. It's hard to sit here and admit this, but I don't think I necessarily helped with his nervousness 2 years ago. Back then, I was getting over a bad fall and pretty scared to even be sitting on a horse. That's the hard part to admit as a professional, that you were scared to be on a horse, but that's the truth. Had I been in a different place, I think Bits' progress would have looked a bit different. It wouldn't have made him not be tense and nervous, but I definitely could have helped him work through it better with where I'm at today. That's not the case though, and the horse needed trained, so we did our best with what each of us had to give back then. Bits had a lot of anxiety about jumping and wanted to rush before and after the jump. My goal back then was to get him to stay with me and be patient to the jumps. And like I said earlier, there were occasionally some decent moments, but for the most part it was pretty rough. I also want to add that I've chosen the worst parts to show how it was in the beginning. There were definitely better moments, but I feel like all of these clips where Bits is very tense are a more accurate portrayal of where we started. This day was the last day I rode Bits for a while. It was by far the worst day we've had jumping, and something inside me was just like, the horse needs more time. So after today, I put him outside and let him be a horse for a while. So now we're into 2021. Bits has been given some time to rest and mature, and even watching these first few clips of him right now, it's obvious I have a different horse. It's definitely looking more relaxed than it did the year before. My confidence is also improving at this point. I've been riding my other horses and starting to jump them again and do it more consistently, so from this point on, my confidence is on an upward trend. I tell you this because our mindsets play a huge part in how our horses go, so I think it's important to talk about where my head was at in certain stages of this process. I've also let go of this whole vision I had stuck in my head of how this horse should go. I stopped trying to get him on the bit and just let everything be easier for him. He was still quite tense while I was getting him back into jumping, but I just kept the jump small and was patient with him while I figured out what he was doing. Bits is a 17-hand horse, so he's a pretty big guy, so figuring out what he was doing with his legs was another big thing for him. Right here, Bits was wanting to run through my hand and he wasn't responding to a half halt, so I circled him over the first jump and made him come back to it instead of continuing down the line. Getting this horse to be responsive to a half halt has been the most important piece to this horse's puzzle, and it took a lot of time, consistency, and patience to get there. Here's the first course Bits ever did, and you can already see a little difference in him from where he started this ride at. It's like he had an epiphany that I'm trying to help him get to the jumps and it's okay to accept my help. But in all seriousness, what probably happened was he got a little more comfortable going over the jumps as the ride progressed, and as a result was able to start paying more attention to me. Basically, he left survival mode and became more aware that he had me helping him too. Over the next few weeks, Bits kept working on courses and gaining confidence in rideability. I kept the jumps very small for a long time. I think one of the biggest mistakes is getting in a hurry with jump height, and this horse especially would have gotten so overwhelmed. There is so much that can be done over poles and small jumps, and Bits definitely didn't need one more thing asked of him while he was gaining confidence over fences. Right now we're in August 2021, and by this point I feel like there's enough there to try taking Bits to his first show. It was a local show only a few minutes down the road from us, and a good way to see how he is off property without making it too stressful on him and keeping him away from home for days at a time. I was really happy with how he was. There were of course some baby moments, like trying to convince me to let him leave the ring every time we passed the open gate, and he didn't have much confidence over the jumps, but he always tried. So this right here is the very first course he did at a horse show, and it was by no means good, but he went in there and he jumped everything, and really for their first horse shows, that's kind of all you can ask from him. This is a second trip, and it was again not very good, but he went in there and jumped everything, so I was still very happy with him. The weeks after his first horse show, Bits started doing more gymnastics to help him learn to organize his feet better, and the jump started getting a little bigger. Not by much, because I didn't want to risk overfacing him and getting him all nervous again. The last clips I have of Bits in the summer of 2021 are with Riley on him. She'd ridden him once or twice before, but today was her first time cantering him. He's a big horse, but he has a very naturally balanced canter, so it was pretty easy for Riley to canter him. Now we're in the fall of 2021, the day before his second horse show. At this point, he's like a completely different horse. He's put on a lot of weight and muscle, and we're starting to work a lot better together. His second show is what I consider to be his first horse show. It's quite a bit bigger of an environment than his first show was. It's the first time he stayed away from home, his first time seeing actual hunter jumps, etc. It was a lot of firsts for him, so that's why I consider it to be his first horse show, even though it's technically his second. All in all, Bits handled everything very well at this show. There was one jump that he absolutely hated, and he had one stop at it every day of the show in his warm-up, but ultimately this was a great learning experience for him, and the show also helped me learn a lot about him as well. Everything that you just saw was from the schooling day at the horse show, so now we're into the actual competition part. All I did with him in the mornings of this show was lunge him, but the following shows I changed what I did based on the horse I had at this show. As you can see, his undersaddle was rough, and that's putting it mildly. He was a nervous wreck. You have two options when your class is going this poorly. Well, I guess three options. The first one for safety reasons is excuse yourself from the ring, which I came pretty close to doing at times in this class, not because I felt out of control, but because I didn't want to ruin the class for anyone else. But anyways, back to my original point, you can get frustrated at your horse, or you can let it go and just help them get through the class. My goal was to get him through the class and do everything I could to help him relax without losing control of him. It was rough, but we made it through the class. For his warm-up over fences, I let him trot into the lines. I'm a big fan of letting green horses trot jumps first. It gives them more time to think, which in my opinion helps create a more confident horse, and it's easier for the rider to keep the horse straight should they decide to try and find a way around the jump. Like I said earlier, he had this one jump that he just hated. There wasn't anything that special about it, it was honestly one of the more plain looking jumps, but he truly just hated it. He stopped once at it each day and then jumped it, and it wouldn't be a problem for the rest of the day. That's another one of those get frustrated and make it more stressful for the horse, or let it go and help them get through it moments. The latter is what should always be chosen. I gave him a second to think, approached the jump again, this time a little more prepared to drive should I need to, and got him over the jump. It's pretty easy to feel judged in moments like these, but anyone who knows anything about horses knows that things happen. And it really comes down to what you can do to help your green horse learn and build confidence. A lot of these moments were left out of show vlogs for that reason. Too many people with too many opinions on things they don't really know. Green horses will have green moments. It's inevitable. Anyone who thinks every moment will go according to plan simply hasn't spent enough time around horses. Not all horses will be as nervous as Bits was when they're getting started out, but they will definitely not go around like a maid horse until someone puts the miles on them to get them there. There's not enough credit given to the trainers who sit on green horse after green horse to put the miles on them and help them through their first horse shows. It's not for the faint of heart, and it certainly keeps you humble. The thing that made me the most happy to see with Bits at this horse show was that he got a little more relaxed and confident with each trip. That meant I was doing something right for him. The second day of the show, Bits trotted his warm-up again and then continuously got more relaxed with each trip. If I'm recalling correctly, he ended up winning one of the over fences today. This show really served its experience building purpose for Bits. I didn't go there with the goal of getting a bunch of ribbons. I wanted to see how this horse handled this environment, get him more experience, and build his confidence. We did just that. So no, we didn't come home with a bunch of ribbons, but the show was still very successful for him. And given everything I've been through with this horse and how long it's taken just to get him to a show, I was over the moon to even have him there at all. When we got back from the horse show, I wanted to keep working on getting Bits to relax more. It had certainly improved a great deal from where we started, but the last show told me that it needed to be better. I rode him around on the buckle for many weeks, working on getting him to not get quick in the trot and to be quieter in his transitions. He sometimes would like to anticipate transitions, so anytime he would get ahead of me, I put him on a circle until I relaxed and then tried again. From here on, it's a lot of just fine-tuning things and continuing to get Bits more schooled and confident over fences. Unfortunately, at this point, it's the winter, so I'm limited with what I can do in the indoor, but I did what I could. I started putting the jumps up a bit around this time too. This was his first time jumping 3 foot under saddle. We're now gearing up for his next show, and I tried my best to recreate the jump he hated so much at the last show with what I had available. Basically, the only similarity was I had a brown box, but I didn't have any green brush, so that's as close as I could get. He was much more confident schooling at the show this time. No stopping at all. He's not a stopper by any means, but his mind was just blown at the first but technically second show he went to. I also tried something different with him at this horse show. I started hacking him around the ring in the morning before the show started to see if it would help him relax easier when he goes in to compete. I think it's definitely something that helps him, so I've kept doing it. He'll probably grow out of needing it at some point, but for now, while he's so green with showing, if it helps him, it's definitely worth doing. After all, I want him to like horse shows and not dread being there because it makes him too nervous. A few other noteworthy moments from this horse show. He was confident enough to canter his warm-ups, and he's also doing 2.6 for the first time. I had to last minute move him to baby greens at this show to keep him in the big ring because they moved the division he was doing to the smaller ring, and I really just don't like it back there. I was originally planning to give him one more show at 2 foot and then move him to the baby greens just because he wasn't super confident his first time here, but he felt really good schooling the day before, so I decided to just go ahead and try him in the 2.6. This line right here was a big wake-up call for me. The line before we came to this diagonal rode so well, and I got a little too comfortable thinking I didn't have to bring him back to me so much down the lines, but I was wrong and I ruined an otherwise very nice trip. His under saddle was after the over fences this time, so that definitely helped him. He was much more relaxed than the previous under saddle he did. There were still some tense moments, but without a doubt, a step in the right direction. This show told me that his transitions are something that still need work. But on a positive note, he struggled immensely with picking up his right lead, far more than any off-the-track horse I've ever seen. It used to take him many tries to finally get it, but that's something that has gotten much better. It's all a process and nothing happens overnight. I would still like to see him stay on the bit during transitions, but that's something that's still going to take more time. This trip is from the second day of the show, and I'm very proud of it. I finally felt like the pieces were coming together for us. He even got some comments from other trainers about how good he looked compared to the last show. It was a really good day. We got home and kept doing our homework. Lots of transitions, getting him softer in my hand, and of course continuing to get him more confident jumping. Bits has continuously come home from shows feeling like a better, more mature version of himself, more so than any horse I've ever ridden, which is a good thing because he can be a little more nervous than the average horse. That brings us to the most recent show Bits has done. He started off his show day with a huge undersaddle. There were 19 horses in it, and I was very close to scratching it because he hasn't been the most relaxed horse to undersaddle, so the last thing I wanted to do was go do it with 18 other horses in the ring. I decided to try it with the decision to leave the ring should he at all feel like he was going to explode, but it ended up being his best undersaddle he's had. He was relaxed the entire time and was honestly just so good. The icing on the cake was that he won the class. My mom and I both had tears in our eyes after that. Bits is a beautiful mover. It was just a matter of getting him to relax enough in the ring, and it finally happened.
First place goes to 5-23. That's looking at Bits and Stephanie Prince.
He actually won a lot at this show when his rider didn't screw up. He won and over fences in the big division he did, and was champion of that division as well out of 19 horses. Knowing where this horse started and how far he's come made all the blue ribbons from this show that much better. There's still things to work on, like he has the tendency to swap his lead in front of the jumps when he's feeling unsure of himself, but that's something that has continued to get better the more he's in the show ring. His turning also needs some work still. He's a big guy and not the most eager to turn, but it's all just things that will come with more time and schooling. The biggest thing for me is how much more confident in himself he is. Bits is a good horse that is turning into a very nice hunter. Something that I never thought he'd be when he first started over fences. I always thought he'd end up in the jumper ring, but here he is again, proving me wrong. My plan for Bits is for him to continue to get miles in the baby greens this year, and then hopefully next year he'll be ready to move to the 3-foot greens. There's been so many tears I've cried over this horse. The first few years with him sucked. He came to me with terrible feet and needed 6 months off so I didn't end up bowing his tendon trying to ride him with how bad his feet were. So many abscesses and a constant battle of trying to get the horse down, trying to keep the horse down, trying to keep his shoes on, trying to keep him from impaling himself with mysterious objects that could never be found. The list goes on and on. A lot of broken dreams, like taking him to the thoroughbred makeover, although if he could still go now, he'd be amazing. Unfortunately, we're 4 years late on that one. It's been a journey for sure, and there's still a long way to go, but we're starting to see this horse reach his full potential, and that makes everything we have endured worth it.